Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning for our City Council budget meeting. We've got a few items to go through. We'll go ahead and get started. Ruth, could you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Adamson?
Here.
Gray? Cheatham?
Here.
Johnston?
Here.
Lurick?
Here.
Lamont?
Here.
Platt?
Here. Thank you. We'll go to agenda item number 2, which is fiscal year 2020 budget development overview. Finance staff will give a brief overview of the budget development items related to creation of the city's fiscal year 2020 budget. Ashley.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Ashley Welsh, Deputy CFO. We are going to start off, you guys had asked John to look at some fees, so he's bringing those back to get some guidance so that we can build them into the budget or not. So go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. And thank you, Mayor and Council, for sliding me in here before you guys get going today. John Banks, Parks and Recreation Director. So back on May the 16th, during our Parks and Recreation presentations, Council gave staff some specific direction and then also asked us to look into a couple of things. So the first page kind of outlines the direction that Council gave to bump up each of the categories $10 from where we were at, so you can see kind of, you know, the chain. The second crossed out would be what we had recommended at May 16th, and then we migrated into the 10 additional dollars for each category. And then we also classified the OK Ward Park facility as kind of the premium, one of the 2 premium, in addition to Ross Park Lower shelters, where you know, the cleaning fees and the impact on city staff and those types of things are much higher than the other facilities. So we added that to the premium sites, where we would get an additional $25 to $40. So that was kind of specific council direction, but that's what that looks like.
What does it mean, John, where it says nonprofit use?
So if it's a non-resident organization or business that's coming out for, I don't know, a large, let's say a Idaho Falls business, or let's say Premier Technologies in Blackfoot has their big company picnic, that would be a for-profit entity using it for a non-profit purpose. Whereas
one of those, I think, should say for profit, right?
Oh, that's a typo on my part. So the second category should be for-profit use.
Okay.
That's a John copy and paste job there. Sorry about that. Any questions on that?
How do we compare, say, with a community like Idaho Falls for rentals of recreational space like we're talking about?
Pretty comparable. We try and stay. We kind of based our recommendations on kind of staying comparable to the surrounding communities, and I think we're still there. I think we're very competitive.
Do we have any resistance from people wanting to use our parks being charged a fee?
No, I mean, people are always trying to finagle a way to not pay as much, but in general, I think our shelters are pretty nice, and you know, we take good care of them. We don't get a whole lot of pushback.
So when a very large group uses something at Ross Park, the over 100 is it, whether it's 200 or 1,000?
Correct. And then we get the additional kind of premium, either $25 or $40 on top of that, knowing that we're going to have more trash and more impact.
Okay, so good.
So we just need guidance on if we should build this into the fee schedule for.
I would say yes.
Looks good.
Think so?
And then if there's any additional, let me know.
Yeah.
All right.
The next proposed change, council had asked staff to take another look at kind of justifying some additional non-resident charges if possible, and maybe go to the next page first. So those were our recommendations. This is kind of how we got there. So what I did is took a look at the last kind of full fiscal year that we had as a gauge point, which was fiscal 18. We had final cemetery expenses of just over $530,000. Now, some of those expenses are non, quote unquote, maintenance related. We've got office staff, The sexton position is kind of split between an office and a maintenance oversight function. So we backed out those costs, which left us with approximately $430,000 of yearly maintenance expenses. In fiscal 18, we recovered 378,000-ish, which left us with about 52,000 of maintenance expenses that were not recovered by fees. Just something to keep in mind that we did over-execute a bit on our cost recovery from last year. I think we had budgeted an estimate of 330 or 340, and we were over that by 30,000. So, but anyway, as compared to maintenance expenses versus cost recovery, we were short about $52,000 in maintenance expenses not recovered. Then we got into kind of the burial plots and the percentage of non-resident burial plots. So we've got about 27,000 interned currently. And of those, the cemetery sexton estimates about 20 to 25% non-residents. So we split the difference and made it 22.5, which gave us about 6,000 non-residents. Now, in addition to the non-recovered budget maintenance expenses, the Pocatello taxpayers supported the cemetery operations to the tune of 193, almost 194,000. So what I did is I took the 194 tax support and the unrecovered 52,000 for a total unrecovered maintenance expense of 246,721 and divided that by the number of non-resident spaces for kind of the resident-borne non-resident benefit of about $40.61 per non-resident space. So that's kind of the math behind the recommendation there. And then we can go back to the first page. With that said, I think this is better, this additional cost is better. What we're talking about is kind of maintenance in perpetuity for non-resident spots. So that really feels more like an endowment care, where it's a surcharge for taking care of the plot in perpetuity. So what I'm proposing is leaving the regular standard or non-resident space fee the same as was recommended on May the 16th at $1,200. And adding that $40 per resident and creating a new standard endowment care fund category of $200, which is the $40 more than the resident discounted endowment care fund of $160. So that was kind of how I got to that recommendation. And if the council was kind of followed that and was happy with it, we would propose to implement that.
John, I'm just gonna start this out. I still don't. It's expensive to run a cemetery throughout all time, and it's expensive. And I look at little communities like Roberts out there that has a cemetery, and I look at a community of 15,000 people that don't, because we just let them come to ours and we don't charge them anything for it. I'm a firm believer this still isn't enough money to charge going on into time. And I can see how we got there, but the citizens of Pocatello have for over a century been paying the bill for our residents up north to not have a cemetery. Mm-hmm. And I mean, for a couple $100 a month, or a couple $100 for all time, I'll pay the $200 and never have to pay another, buy the spot, pay the $200 and not have to worry about paying taxes.
Yeah, well,
you start doing that, and now we can't water, we can't maintain, we can't do our stuff. I really have a hard time saying, don't worry about spending $5 million on ground so that you can bury people in and then do all of that stuff, because we got that covered for you. I think we've got our neighbor up north that is riding our coattails, and expenses there are allegedly cheaper than they are here, but I don't think it's enough personally, but That's me. The council may feel differently, but
Well, we did also propose a $100 increase to the regular standard space, so that's kind of $140 per non-resident. And the non-resident fee is, roughly 30% higher than the resident space fee. But I mean, staff, of course, obviously will do whatever the council feels is best. I was trying to, I guess, kind of have a logical train of thought that we could hang our hat on for these increases if we were ever questioned on them. So.
I totally understand that, and I think that's it, and it's reasonable, and I'm sure that our attorneys feel like that's a little more defendable than the mayor's idea of just charging X amount of dollars we pull out of the sky. And so, I mean, I'm okay with it, but I think at some point we really truly have to figure out if this cemetery is going to be. How do we get money out of the city of Chubbuck in order to maintain the cemetery? Because right now, they don't tax for it, and we do. Mm-hmm. And right now, they take advantage of that, but we pay for it. And so, at some point, we really have to have that discussion, I think. And I don't know what the number is, Councilman. You asked what's the number. I don't know what the number is. This is going in the right direction, but I don't think it's near enough, personally.
How do you determine residency? Is it the person being buried or the person requesting?
The person that's on the deed. So the person who purchases the plot is the determinant of resident. So for instance, if my folks are in California, well, I live in Ingham, but let's say I lived in Pocatello, and I purchased, they love it up here, they want to be with us when they pass, and I purchased plots. They would be purchased because I was a Pocatello resident.
And I agree this might not be enough in the long run, but I also agree that we need to have some basis for the numbers rather than just adding some random amount.
I agree with that.
Would the council maybe entertain a little bit more than the recommended $100 on the regular standard space? Maybe we go up a little bit more on there. I mean, we are proposing a $100 increase from fiscal 19 to fiscal 20. And then this extra $40 for the endowment care. So we're proposing another $140 per non-resident plot, but we'll certainly implement what the council directs.
Do you have a projection as to what this increase is going to amount to in terms of overall income?
Well, Martin estimates that our non-resident rate is between 20 and 25% of the spaces. So I don't know if you say 20% and we're burying. Or I'm sorry, we're selling about 300-ish per year, so about 60 times the extra $140, roughly.
How much does that calculation change if you go off of 25% instead of 20%? What would it change that $40 figure?
Actually, it would. I think it would serve to lower it a little bit.
Oh, it would.
Yeah.
Okay.
He said 20 to 25%. We're in the process of trying to bring ourselves into the 80s here over at the cemetery and implement our new software system. But it's a combination of kind of a paper base going back into the early 1900s and some of it computerized. So it would be quite an exercise to get that exact figure. But Martin's been there about 40 years. I'm trusting that he's. It's give or take. It's fairly close. When we do get the new software system, I think we'll be able to nail that down quite a bit tighter, and maybe we can revisit these figures. But as far as kind of where we sit right now, not going through a really, really cumbersome exercise, I think this is pretty darn close.
So Council, I mean, I'm okay with this, but I think next year we're going to have this same discussion about what the real numbers are and what it really does cost. And I mean, John's done yeoman's work trying to get numbers put together for us right now, and I'm okay with it. I just personally, I have a hard time asking taxpayers of Pocatello to pay for non-residents of Pocatello. I just have a hard time now. My attorney's sitting over there, and he's a little bit jumpy right now because I'm saying this stuff because he has to defend it. But I think there's a way that you've got to be able to justify it, and if you do something like this, I believe it's justifiable. He's gone through the process, but I think we need better numbers, and I think that if you're not going to be a taxpayer in Pocatello, you need to participate in another way, and that would be fees. That's
Yeah.
my own.
In the long run, we're going to be looking at some big maintenance. I mean, fences need to be maintained and replaced, watering systems. A lot of those big things are going to have to be done down the road, and we ought to be building some kind of reserve to do that.
Right now, we can't. We have a fence right now that's been there for 10 years. It's been there for 20 years that we've needed to replace, but we can't because we can't afford it. And we got sidewalks that you can't. You've got, I mean, we had a big discussion about increasing the size of our cemeteries, and we decided that we couldn't do it at the time to do that, and we're going to eventually run out of space. It might be 20 years, but in 20 years, I don't want to be the guy that the mayor and council is going, I don't know why they didn't fix this problem back then. And so I think this is a step in the right direction, but I think that we need to have the discussion and really, truly have a way to defend it.
I would say that for our attorney's sake, that we adjust it regularly over time.
And maybe that's the way to do it.
And so we look at what our, because costs go up, we justify the acceleration in costs, and our attorney can defend that. So instead of fixing it right now altogether, we're going to fix it incrementally as we go.
And that's fair.
Yeah, I think there's and I would feel much more comfortable as well, kind of going forward, getting with Jared and putting our heads together and, kind of implementing the plan for these large capital improvements, the replacement of the main line and fencing or whatever they may be. And there's got to be a justifiable formula to kind of spread that a bit, but those are off on the horizon a little bit. I do agree, maybe be incremental about it and kind of get there over time.
And there are probably some other areas too, because I know several people that used to be Pocatello residents and now reside out there, bought plots in Pocatello. So they're fixed in time with that, but their interment, if they're non-resident and being interred, there could be another charge there that takes us down a few years.
Sure.
There's some adjustments we can make that way. When you own the ground, but we still got to bury a non-resident, and so we could probably do some adjustments on interment fees.
Yeah, I agree. I'm good with it, council, but I think we need to be adjusting it up.
Can we go back to the calculation
John,
page?
can you go back to the calculation? There you go.
So you had said we kind of over-executed on the amount of revenue, is that right? So is there a way to kind of edge it up if we're wanting to do that, to say, well, we did over-execute and we may not again, so we can bump it up even if it's $5 or something? Can we justify that? Or
Well, I'm going off of fiscal
Just
18
made him start to
figures.
twitch again.
I'm going off of fiscal 18 figures. We actually bumped up the expectation to, I think it was 380 in fiscal 19. So I'm a little uncomfortable with
Okay,
that.
okay.
I knew he was going to come up here. I knew he couldn't stand it.
You knew I was coming up. Good morning, Mayor and Council.
We
Jared
baited you.
Johnson, City Council. What's that?
We baited you.
Yeah, I was mentioned a couple of times, and I just want to say that, yeah, this is a legal nerd like myself. When I see calculations like that, it makes me feel really good, because that's a very justifiable reason for a fee increase. We can rely on those numbers, and John split the difference on some numbers we didn't know exactly what they were. Looked at the most recent year. Those are all good things when it comes to deciding what a fee increase should look like. I also understand the other concerns that have been raised and discussed, and those are certainly valid concerns, a little more difficult to defend. I think the best path going forward is what you've already kind of talked about, and that is look at this on an annual basis and look at the previous year's numbers and make adjustments as necessary. As we get better and more accurate numbers in the future, we will be able to pin those down. Yeah, this is the way to do it, and so I would encourage you to continue down the path that you're already doing here.
I'd like to see us look at trends rather than 1 year snapshot to see what's going on, whether we're increasing or decreasing resident or non-resident,
Right.
what the maintenance expenses have been, what the anticipated expenses are, those kinds of things.
Because if it's going up and down each year, we need to kind of see where we're really going.
It tends, I mean, since I've been here anyway, it tends to be relatively stable because we've been directed to come in flat on our budget since I've been here. So I mean, the trend is fairly stable the last 5 years or so.
So you okay with them building it into the budget?
Yeah.
Okay, let's build it in.
Thank you.
Good math.
And the last area where council had asked staff to take another look was the community recreation center fees. And we're kind of after an awful lot of discussion by Stacy and I, we're recommending a change to the daily user fees, and I'll get to the membership fees, but we're not recommending, of course we'll do as council directs, but we're not recommending a change to the membership fees, and I'll explain the reasons why. So the daily fees, we're proposing, instead of just one flat rate, we're creating a resident and non-resident structure. So the current fees would carry forward for the residents. And then the non-residents, we're proposing to bump those up slightly. We've already checked, and they're still under where our competition is, Gold's Fitness and Planet Fitness. I'm sorry, Gold's and Fitness Inc. Planet Fitness does not have a daily rate. The strategy on this is we're hoping to push these folks, if they're coming to our facility multiple times a month, that they'll see kind of the reason and the value in obtaining a membership with us. And that's the bread and butter of our revenue stream. So it creates kind of an equity for some of the tax burden that the residents are bearing by going to a non-resident fee, and hopefully pushes them in the direction of maybe obtaining a membership. Hey, I love this place. It's costing me, $20 to come once a week. I might as well get a membership. So that's kind of the train of thought on these recommendations. And then the second page, this is kind of just an outline of our current membership fees, so monthly membership or annual membership fees. They're a little on the cumbersome side, been like this for a long time and has evolved into this structure in, I guess, strategic efforts to maximize revenue. So we've got a lot of different choices and categories here to try and accommodate everyone's needs. The reasons that we're not recommending any membership fee changes at this time is Planet Fitness opened in late December, and we're over them as far as our fees. They have a $10 a month membership with a $49 annual fee. They also have a $21 a month membership with unlimited guest passes. So I kind of I think we need to remain competitive with them. We have seen kind of the trend the last 3 years. Around this time in fiscal 17, we were Community Rec Center was cost recovering at about 69% in fiscal 17 and 18. In fiscal 19, we've seen that drop to 65%, and I think it's directly attributable to the opening of the Planet Fitness. We've seen a loss of regular memberships, bank drafts, employees. And we're very, very nervous that if we increase and get ourselves above the market too much, it may keep trending in that direction. So those are kind of all the reasons why we're recommending to kind of hold stable with the monthly and the annual membership fees. We've got about 1,580 memberships as of fiscal 18. Which has dropped a bit in light of the revenue figures going from 69 to 59%, or I'm sorry, 69 to 65% over the 3-year trend, but it's still very, very healthy. Anyway, those are my concerns. Stacy and I share these concerns. We are nervous that we're kind of reached that line, and we want to remain competitive with our competition. So. For those reasons, we would propose a daily fee increase, but not the membership fees, which we feel are kind of right on the cusp of being not competitive if we go any higher.
Are services between the rec center and the other gyms around town comparable?
They're comparable. I think we have a bit more of a broken-in facility, and they're with a new facility, you've got nice new equipment and things. But then we have a pool.
Yeah.
They don't, or our competition does not. We also offer benefits to our members like swim classes and dance classes and yoga and other types of things. And they offer some of the same things, but not all. So our services are comparable. I think we're the atmosphere is just very different at the rec center versus a Planet Fitness or a Fitness Inc. or something. I think there's a kind of a more of a family feel, a comfort level for a lot of our members that helps us retain them. But the fear is especially for non-residents that may live on the other side of the 86 or something, if you raise it up on them too much, they start to wonder, why am I driving all the way over? So those are kind of the concerns.
I was going to ask that question, and I guess there's no way to really answer this, but how much of losing some of that business to the residents of the north is just simply the location?
Yeah.
They opened up a gym near them. Many of them are going to go because it's closer.
I think
But
and
I
a
do
lot of it
understand
is,
we need to be competitive, but I think we're going to lose a certain amount anyway.
and that's what we speculate is happening. In fact, when I spoke with Stacy this morning, and I'll show you my reaction, she said that she actually got a membership over at Planet Fitness, and I kind of said, it's one of those, right? You're the director of CRC, and it's a time thing with her because she lives over there.
Right.
It's kind of, she gets the kids ready, she stops there, it's on the way, and then she's into work. So a lot of that comes into it. It's the location of the facility as compared to where you live. So.
I think some of them have different hours than we do too. I mean,
Yeah.
just
Yeah, that's
all of
true.
that stuff. So
And they're in a marketing surge right now too, and we aren't doing any marketing of the additional opportunities that are available at the rec center over Planet Fitness or Gold's Gym.
well, if we market too hard, we hear from
That's true.
hear from them.
It's I'm not indicating any doom and gloom. Our cost recovery is still, I think we were close to 80% in fiscal 18 for that facility, and this year, we're trending about 4% down, but it's still very, very healthy. I kind of feel like we're always strategic on our fee recommendations to kind of get to that line of getting all you can, but not
going
losing it because you've gone too far. So Stacy and I both feel that we're kind of at that line here, so that's why we're not recommending membership increases.
You okay with that down here?
Yes.
Well, and we created our own surge by paying our membership a few years ago.
That's true.
We created some stuff that way that now then people are looking at their schedules and saying, I don't want to be a city employee and necessarily go to the community center because it doesn't fit my schedule.
Yeah.
So you're okay
I-
not changing and then increasing the daily?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get those in the fee schedule.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joey. Okay, I think we're moving on to the next item, which is revenue estimates. So we're gonna go over major non-property tax revenues like sales tax, highway user fees, franchise fees. There's 11 items. Show you the current property tax situation as far as we know it as of right now, and then look at inflation and growth. So these are the major tax fund revenues. We're going to go over each of them separately. So this is kind of an overwhelming slide, but just wanted to throw it in there. So we will start by showing you the revenue sharing formula. You can see that our state sales tax is a 6%, and it just kind of shows how it flows through the state and the county distribution, and then how much goes to cities and counties. And this has been in legislation for 2 years. So it's something that the AIC is aware that could possibly be changed, and that they're working on to try to keep it equitable for cities. So it's something that's kind of been a hot topic the last couple of years. So just so you guys are aware, they've been trying to push through legislation. So right now, nothing has changed, but it could in the future, which could potentially bring our revenue sharing down. So there are no changes this year. For sales tax, it's replacement dollars, not state aid. We get 11.5% of the tax is revenue sharing. So you can see the trend, and then you can see the trend over the last 12 months. So the AIC actually estimates an amount per city, and they provide that to us. And so the AIC's estimate for FY20 is $4,894,796, which is an increase of about $250,000. So the prior 12 months supports this because they're expecting an increase in sales tax for the next year. So I'm just looking for council guidance on what you would like me to build into the FY20 budget.
Looks like it's provided for us.
Yep.
I think I would stick with the AICs. They've always been pretty
Okay.
solid.
Sorry, I'm just taking some notes really quick. Okay, the next item is highway user fees. So this is the local portion of the gas fee and registration fees that are paid for the state of Idaho. We get 30% is to cities based on population, and then we get some from counties and highway districts goes to there, and then we get some from Bannock County in the form of another fee, which we'll talk about, I think, next. But you can see the trend has been increasing, and there was a pretty big increase when they implemented the increase. I think it was 7?
17?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So, yeah, they increased the tax, the 32-cent tax, and the registration fees. So you can see that it has been steadily increasing. The AIC estimate is $2,598,000, which is an increase of about $22,000. We did over execute for the last 12 months, so we can stick with the AIC estimate if you would like. The extra money just will help to build reserves for future use if we over execute in our budget. So
they're estimating a decline?
Well, from their FY19 estimate, they're increasing it by 22,000, but we over executed what we actually got from what we've budgeted. So we got almost $40,000 more than what we had budgeted.
Remind us if that is a trend every year. Do we usually over execute on what AIC?
I think we have been, just because they're really conservative with their numbers. So basically, if we over execute, it just builds street reserves. So but it's the council's decision as to what we build in the budget, and then we just take the difference in taxes. So just looking for guidance on that.
I just have a hard time thinking it would go down from
yeah.
what it actually was. So it should at least be the 2616, I would think, but.
I would agree. I would have a hard time thinking it will go down, recognizing that there's a push for the electric cars, which will eventually force this down. But in Idaho, I'm not seeing that happening right now as quickly as other states.
Tesla announced a truck this morning, 500-mile range,
How much does it cost though?
less than 50 grand.
Oh.
It's going to be interesting to see how it takes off.
Well, they'll make adjustments. They'll charge more per tire and stuff like that.
For a tire, yeah, that's true.
Every vehicle has a tire.
I agree with Heidi. I think maybe last year's number's a decent number.
So the prior 12-month
Yeah.
trend, okay, the 2,616,000.
That's what I think
Okay.
I'd put.
Sounds good. Okay, Bannock County Road and Bridge. This is remitted to the city through the Bannock County property tax remittance. Bannock County controls the amount levied for this revenue, which also includes the county portion of the highway user monies. So you can see we had a pretty big increase when the change went into effect, and then it kind of started to trend a little bit downward. So we had budgeted for $800,000 in FY19. The prior 12 months were at about $700,000. So I'm not sure of the trend on this. I know that we don't have control over what Bannock County levies, and I haven't heard anything from them, and I don't think we usually do. So my recommendation would be to budget the $700,000 just to be on a conservative side for that one.
I'm okay with that.
That's probably fair.
Okay.
Based on Mr. Tubby's epiphany yesterday, I think that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Same in all that. The highest tax.
Okay, go with the 700. All right, building permits. You can see the trend. We went up for a few years, and then 2018's actuals are down, but the last 12 months have increased significantly. Where new development is expected to continue. So I would recommend going anywhere between the $675,000 to the $750,000 range. I know that it's not quite the 844, but again, I'm just trying to be conservative, but it's up to you guys what you want to build into the budget. The building department generally does not take any tax money. They actually give back to the general fund in fees. So even at that if we budgeted $675, we would still be covering their expenses 100%.
I think we ought to go to the high side of the 750.
Okay.
I think it's going to be
I agree.
here.
I think that, I agree.
But based on this report, which was in our mailbox, we're not collecting the money we collected last year, and we're doing more business. This really has me concerned.
What do you think we attribute?
I don't know. To me, it doesn't make any sense. An example, roofing. We did 12 roofs this period, reporting period. Last year, we did 5, but we collected just over half the amount of money.
Smaller roofs.
It's, some of this just doesn't make sense. Electrical. We did 108 this reporting period versus 72 the same period last year, and we collected under half the amount of money.
Size of the jobs, I guess.
Well, the valuation is higher this year than it was last year, a year ago, but we're collecting half the amount of money. Something doesn't seem right with this report.
And who's preparing that? The building department?
I don't know.
Yeah, the building department prepares that. I don't know why that doesn't make any sense, that it would go down if we're doing that much more.
And the valuation's higher.
Yeah.
Isn't that what the fees are based on?
I think, yeah.
Something isn't right with our fees.
If they've just got some wires crossed or something there, but we'll have to,
We need to look at that.
They
Look
did
at
that
that.
the year before, that's why the fees.
I know
were-
yeah,
that
maybe so. Maybe
I don't know
correct.
how accurate those reports are, because we haven't been able to match them up to the accounting system. So like that report, I've seen that report before, and we've tried to match up like the totals to what we actually received in the accounting system, and they don't match.
That
So,
really makes me nervous.
we've looked at it, and we looked at it when Lynn was here, and we're not sure where the difference is.
Well, one of the things I've really noticed is how low the valuation comes in on houses. They'll come in at $150,000 and go on the market at $350,000.
Yeah.
And, that's a discrepancy that we ought to be paying attention to.
We'll be looking at.
When I look at the summary on this report, last year it was $2.45 million in valuation. This year it's $4.5 million valuation, and we only collected $3,000 more in fees. Something isn't right here. Either we're not collecting the fees, or
Well, that's,
I don't understand it.
it sounds like we're collecting the fees, they're just not being reported on that end like they are in the accounting, so.
Yeah, because you can see we're at 844,000 over the last 12 months, and from what I've been seeing, we kind of look at that building permits every month, and there's been some really big months this past fiscal year.
So in your system, it's looking okay. It's this system that's the problem.
That's what we think. We've been trying to work on it with IT. We just can't. We don't know where the information's being pulled from on the building permitting side, so.
Maybe we could charge Mr. Bigelow with the responsibility to find that
Sure.
discrepancy.
It'd be a great idea to
I mean,
do.
he's brand new, so he needs a little bit of time, but I think we should have him
Going
come
right enough.
present
I
to us
agree.
at a work session or something and
Yeah.
kind of get to the bottom of
Yep,
that,
give him
because
the-
there's no sense us getting
Yeah.
that if it's wrong or if
Right.
Give him
you
a
know.
few months and
Yeah.
get him to come and
Give him
talk
a
to us.
week.
But
Yeah.
give him a week. You got 24 hours to get this figured out. We'll do that, but I think I agree with Jim. I think I'd go to the 750. Roger has a comment.
Well, I would look and say, if you average the last 4 years, 2018 is an anomaly. And I would even think you could go to 800,000.
Yeah, I don't think we had any large
Yeah,
projects in fiscal 18.
We're supposed to have a lot of projects coming up, so.
Yes.
Supposed to be a lot coming.
So, but I'm saying that 2018 is an outlier.
Yeah.
Where you look at this, what we're doing right now, what we did in 17, what we did in 16. There's a trend line going there, and if we expect growth, then 750 seems pretty low.
Yeah, that's a good
You want to go
point.
to 800?
You're comfortable at 800,
No.
Linda?
Well, you're saying that we're not going to grow now.
It's in drum, so we can always do a budget amendment if we have more revenue than what's forecast.
Yeah.
Well, what would it just go to general fund?
Yeah, I would go to
Reserve.
general fund if not. I mean, I would be comfortable with 800 knowing what we've got looking at, but
I'm comfortable with 800 too.
I am too.
And
Sure. I'll be comfortable with it.
I don't have an objection to it,
Yeah.
but I have a tendency to want to not have too many budget amendments.
I don't think there'll be a budget amendment either way, will they? If we bring more in, it just goes to the general fund, is that correct?
Usually with things like building permits, we don't amend. Like if we get an extra $100,000 in this year, we're not going to amend to use it. It'll just go to build reserves. We haven't done amendments in, because it's technically buildings revenue, and so they don't need any budget amendments generally. So
I'm comfortable with 800. I think that's reasonable.
okay. So natural gas franchise fees, this is 3% of gross revenues from natural gas, and this goes to the general fund. It's influenced by the prices as well as growth and, of course, the severity of the winter season. So you can see the prior year's actuals and then the last 12 months. This is kind of an unknown because we don't really know the weather and we don't really know what they're going to do, with their fees and everything. But we've seen a little bit of a downward trend, but I know it has been warmer. So I would recommend going to 325,000 just due to recent history, just so we don't kind of we budgeted for 365 in FY19, and I'm not sure if we're going to hit that. So
I'm fine with 325.
325, we got a couple 325s. 325.
okay. I feel like we're at an auction.
I know.
You need to talk a little bit quicker if that's the case. You can start
Okay.
throwing numbers out.
Oh my God. All right, so state liquor tax. After operating costs, 50% goes to the state, 50% remains, and then it's distributed to counties and cities based on sales and based on if the city has a liquor store or not. So this revenue also goes to the general fund. AIC doesn't make an estimate because it kind of depends on your local sales. So it could be different in Boise than it is in Pocatello, and so they give us past history, but they don't make an estimate on this one. So there is new legislation that is taking 50% of cities' liquor tax over the next 5 years to go to magistrate court fees. So what we've been told is to be conservative and not expect an increase in liquor tax, because the increase is basically going to be eaten up by that magistrate court fee. The good thing for us is our magistrate court fee will go away. So there is kind of a benefit, and we will see that, but we're not really going to see a big growth in liquor tax is what we have been told. So I would recommend, you can see the prior year's actuals. I would recommend anywhere from 600 to 650,000. We budgeted for 600,000 in FY19, and we have exceeded that over the last 12 months.
I'd go 625, that's split the difference.
Is that it? 625. 625.
I promise not to drink anymore.
625.
Okay. All right, interest. This is earnings from the cash that we invest. We invest a lot of our money with the state pools, which have been paying actually really, really good rates over the last couple years. So you can see the increase. Prior 12 months, 926,000. This also shows, I know that every time we do the cash report in council, you can see that we have more cash on hand than we have in the past. So that's also a reason why we're getting more in interest. So I would recommend, I mean, in FY19 we budgeted for 475, and that was a pretty big increase from the prior year. I think it was like an additional 200,000. So I would recommend still staying conservative, go 475 to 650, just because the 926, it's a big number, but we don't really know. I mean, I think that the interest rates are going to stay pretty consistent. That's what we've seen, but I wouldn't go up as high as the 900,000. So, but it's up to you. That's just my recommendation on interest.
Looking at our banker.
$500,000.
500?
Yeah, I think that's,
500, 500?
yeah, I think there's going to be some pressure on interest rates.
Okay.
I think there's, yeah, I think so too.
500,000?
Looks like
Can we go
gotta
up a little bit more?
yeah, what do you want, Linda? What are you thinking? Or
I'm
Heidi?
thinking 550.
What's Heidi thinking?
I thought 650.
Heidi, so we got a 550, we got a 500, a 550, and a 650.
I'm going
Do we hear that?
650, I got two at 650.
I'm going to go 500,000. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on
So
interest rates.
we got a couple at 500, we got a couple at 650. Vina?
That's a 600.
Can we average this out?
That's a really big range, I mean.
It is.
But you don't have a rate history.
You good splitting the difference, you two?
You got 2 years.
I got 3 at 600 now.
I think that's pretty fair.
I'm not comfortable there.
I got 2 that aren't, one that's not comfortable. I'm assuming the one on the
go
end's
lower?
not.
Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
if we got 676 and then the prior 12 months have been 926, how would 600?
I don't think the rate's
Problem.
gonna change that.
Because I think interest rates are going to be pressured to underwrite the
Go
market.
down.
And
It's
gonna
dropping
hit
like
us.
a rock.
I
Recession is
think,
coming.
and the trend line
All the
is,
trends are showing.
interest rates haven't gone up.
All the
as
trends
much
are
as that
showing it,
shows.
so.
Recession.
Well, we have had an increase in cash over,
Yeah.
18 to 19. We have more cash on hand than we used to.
So
Back to 550?
So 550, can we get you to 550?
I'll go 550.
550, can we get you to 550?
Sure.
Look at, see, this is an auction.
I know.
It is.
Looks like 550.
Okay. All right, cable franchise fees.
Zero.
Yeah.
So these are 5% of the gross earnings, and this now goes to the general fund. The last 4 quarterly payments have averaged around 47.5. You can see it's just going down and down and down. So I would recommend going 160 to 185.
I would go 170. I'd take 20,000 off.
170 or 160?
I'm Roger.
Okay, we got 2 at 170, 3 at 170. 170 it is.
Actually, take 21.
This is a really.
You need to hammer
I
on
know. That's right.
Okay, magistrate court fees. These are another one that are super hard to estimate.
You said they were going away.
Well, these are the fees that we get from the
okay.
county for city fines. So they'll get a parking ticket, they pay it through the county, we receive, I think, parking tickets, no, they pay here, but there are fees, like court fees that are for
The
infractions.
city ordinance,
Yes.
the cell phone, that
Yes.
fee we would be getting.
So these go to the police department.
Yeah.
Super hard to estimate. They've been kind of decreasing. It's hard to predict because it's county collection. That's where these come from. And so it depends on the number of citations, if they have collection problems and have to send things to collections. So I would recommend going the 195 to 220. That's basically the prior 12 months and the FY18's actuals. That's where I got those. So that's my recommended range on magistrate court fees.
Seems pretty fair. Maybe around 200
Yeah.
within
That's-
the range.
I'd agree with 200,000.
200?
Good round number.
Okay, 200.
It's easier to compare next year.
Yeah.
That's right.
Venus suggested it just was automatically
I know, everybody jumped on that. Venus speaking, we better follow that. That's what happened.
Rarely.
Okay, electric franchise fees. These are 1% of gross revenue, of electric franchise gross revenue, and it goes to the general fund. So you can see it has been around that 450 range for the last couple of years. It's been a pretty consistent over the last 5 years, though. You can see not a huge change. I would recommend 440 to 450.
Did they just request to
rate reduction.
rate reduction?
I think they did that last
Was
year.
that last year?
too. I don't know if it. I know they did last year because I think we talked
Yeah.
about it in here. I don't know about this year though.
It just asked for another one.
Another one.
Let's hold it 450.
450?
Or 440.
Got a 450 and a 440. Venus still been quiet.
I'm feeling 440.
440.
Yeah, numbers.
If you're gonna hold, you're holding at last year's budget,
Yeah.
which is 440.
Okay,
Right.
440.
440. Okay. Cemetery charges. So we've seen. It's weird that we're the ones that determine this, but anyway. So John kind of went over some of the increases in fees. This is the revenue that goes to the cemetery fund. So we budgeted for 380. I mean, we're at 377 over the last 12 months, so it looks like we're going to be pretty close to our budget, if not meet the budget for FY19. I would recommend just staying about the same. I know that we are increasing fees a little bit, but we don't really know the overall impact of that. So I would stay at the 380.
I would stay at 380.
380?
Yep.
Okay, 380.
So I just need to throw out a number and you guys will agree with me, right?
Pretty much.
Apparently
Not
still-
give you a range,
Yeah,
but a
yeah,
number.
yeah.
Okay.
Your ranges are a big range. You're giving us a lot of leeway there.
Okay.
That's right.
I'll stick with the number. Oh, actually, that was the last one, so I don't need to worry about that. Okay, so I just wanted to show you the property tax over the last few years, so you can see just kind of the trend. We've increased about 2%. Last year was almost the 3%. I know the last 2 years, though, we have intended to take the full 3% increase. So you can see that that's actually what we ended up taking after valuations came in. So really, overall, we're pretty flat in our taxable valuation.
Well, based
Wait,
on,
this is, sorry, you guys, I'm confused. This is valuation. The other one was, I think I have another one that's property tax. So the values have gone up 2.3 and 2.76%.
I think based on real estate sales, we're going to see that trend increase. It was reported that the sales for last year was up 17%. So values of what we sold.
And we
That was
do,
locally.
That was locally.
That's residential, right?
That's residential.
we don't get these numbers until August.
This is the crapshoot for us. We
I
don't have
know.
any
So
info.
generally what we've done the last couple of years is, so next week we have our decision-making session, so we'll go over the tax solution, and we'll see what we estimate the levy rate to be at. But we usually come back before the public hearing to give you, usually that day, we usually have numbers and we come back and show you, hey, this is what we have, this is what it's actually going to be. So,
Ashley, what did you say that the values had gone up 2.7 to?
so you can see FY18 they went up 2.31% and FY19 2.76%. Sorry, I got confused on what slide I was
I
on.
can't read it.
Do you need a decision here? Or
No, this is
just
informational.
information?
Yeah. So I just wanted to show you what I have, what information I have so far. We have a foregone balance of $1,871,000. So you can basically use this at any time. You just have to do a separate public hearing for it. They changed that legislation. So it basically just allows you to take more than the 3%. It does increase your levy rate, but it's there if you needed it. So 3% for this year is $894,342. And we'll talk about this more. I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little overview before we go into next week. I spoke with Anita at the county, and we generally are conservative in our new construction, and we say we're going to get about 20 million. She thinks 20 million is a very conservative number. So last year we got 273,000, which was 24 million in new construction. So we'll talk about this next week, but I just kind of wanted to give you some numbers. The TIF closing is estimated to be about 685. They're working on getting me new construction numbers. Hopefully I will have them for next week so we know for sure. But Christy emailed me yesterday and said that they're still working on getting those numbers. But I think I went 20 million and 60 million on the TIF district. I think that the actual valuation was around 86, and then we took, I think, 17, or she was telling me in 2006, I think we changed the TIF, and so we got some of that money back put on the tax rolls in 2006. So we're not going to get the full benefit of we're not going to get the total valuation back.
I see.
Because we already got some of it back when we changed it. So overall, we can take, if we were to take everything, we have about 2.8 million additional. If we were to take everything, but I wouldn't recommend taking.
Could you roll back to the previous slide?
Yep.
So if the valuation went up by 2.5% on that 2,583,000,000, what would that be?
If it went,
If you had the 2,583,000,000 go up by another 2.5%, what would that amount be?
Instead of the 2.76.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this kind of in the middle of those two.
my calculator doesn't go that many numbers. Let's see. So 2.5% would be about 3,220,000. Sorry, I don't have I can't use all my numbers. So yeah, it would be 3,220,000 approximately.
Leave that slide there while I write the number down.
They get 2.7.
Right. Because mine isn't, let's see. You go 2,583.
Can you go down?
It's 2.5 there, 2.5.
That'd be a way to start
Maybe
looking into the future to see what we might expect as revenue to us without raising any taxes. Because that's
right. Yeah, 2.7, you're right. Sorry.
2.712.
Yeah, my calculator doesn't go out that far. But yeah, I mean, we'll definitely, that gives us, if the valuation comes in, our levy rate will stay relatively the same,
So,
depending on what you take.
so Ashley, if you go to the next slide, the foregone balance, we could take 1.87, but we have a public hearing on that, a separate public hearing. If I remember right, we have to state what that
Yes, is being used
going
for.
to be used for, whether it be used for parks, and we kind of lock that into that. It's not a
Right.
fix. Oh, that's
Yeah, you have to say why you're taking foregone balance and what you are specifically using it for.
okay.
Yes. Okay, so here's the new construction. Again, you can see I did the 20 million. 20 million would be valued at 228,000. Last year, like I said, we were at the 273, so 20 million is super conservative. I think, yeah, we came in at almost 29 million in FY18, and then FY19, you can see the 24. So they're working on getting those numbers to me.
If the TIF that we just closed, that $60 million, say it's 60, does that go in as new construction?
Yes.
So yeah, that's.
So we'll see, you can see in FY13 how you have that big jump. That's because we closed a TIF. So when we are looking at FY20, we're going to have a big number. We're going to have probably 80-something million.
I was gonna say, yeah, you would add 60 to that 20
Right,
that
right.
they're telling us now.
And so, but I just kind of broke it out so it was a little bit easier
Yeah.
to look at. But it will come in as new construction.
Okay.
Okay, so you can see that inflation, 2.5%. That's what we took as an increase. That's what we're budgeting for, is the 2.5% increase to employee pay. We've been increasing over the last 3 years, the CPI. So I just wanted to show you again, it was 2.522% for FY19. And our population estimates, they're going up, which is good. They're doing a census in FY20, so we should be able to get, I think we're kind of at the end of our, when they give us the estimates, I don't really know how accurate they are because they're pretty old, but we're estimating 55,193. So from here, we have a decision-making session next week after the scheduled work session. And then if we are able to, we could finish up the budget on June 13th as to, what we plan to do. But we can also have a meeting on July 11th if we need one, to make additional decisions if we need to. So
I was gonna say, will you walk us through the public hearings and when we have to have it published and turned to the state and all of that stuff?
yes, so public hearing, I believe is, let me pull up my calendar.
August 2nd.
Is it the 2nd?
I'm not sure.
August 1st.
Do we have two public hearings?
No, we do.
No.
The first meeting.
So we will publish the 18th and the 17th and the 24th of July.
Okay.
So that July 11th meeting is
The drop
for
list.
publication. I have to have it to the paper the next day. So we need to know how high. We can always go down, but we cannot budget more than what we publish for.
So to give you time,
So-
ideally June 13 would be good to wrap it up. But
Yeah, if
have
we
to
can wrap it up.
in
If
11.
not, I know it's it's like a month, but we have AIC and then the 4th of July, and I'm on
we do
vacation
not
one of those weeks,
27th.
so
We
sorry.
have one on the 27th, but we don't have one on June 27th.
No,
Okay.
I won't be here. I'll be in Florida.
Why would you go to Florida at the end of June?
Oh, I know.
Because my brother is coming back. So.
Okay.
Yes.
Worth it then.
So there is a pretty big, but we usually try to do a meeting when we get the numbers from the county. So
And the county will have us numbers the 1st of July?
valuation isn't until August. I should be getting new construction numbers before next week's meeting, I'm hoping.
Okay.
They were hoping to get them sometime this week. Christy said she hasn't, so I'm just kind of waiting to hear from them. But I mean, if we don't get new construction numbers, I think we can just err on the conservative side and do the 20 to 25 million for new construction and then the 60 million for the tip. She thinks the 60, it will definitely not go below 60. So, but hopefully we'll have them so we can have some more accurate figures. But we usually get valuation. I think they have to have it to us that first week of August, but where it's on the 1st, I don't know if we're gonna have numbers on the 1st. So when we have the public hearing, we might not have the valuations. But I don't think
In
we
the age
approve
of
it.
computers, they should be able to get it to us sooner. I mean, because they go through their Board of Equalization and they finish, I think, by the end of June.
July,
Is it the end of July now?
Board of Equalization's in July.
Okay.
That's maybe something that AIC needs to
And-
work on, changing those dates so
Yeah,
that we can literally, we're pulling numbers out of the sky with no
Well,
idea of
it's
what
not
it
in the
looks like.
interest of taxpayers to,
It isn't.
No, and I was told that there was a lot of people that were disputing the value, so there could be a pretty large change from what they have now to what goes through Board of
well, if
Equalization.
Jim's right though, they can dispute all they want.
Yeah.
The record says 17%.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, Anita just said that there was a lot of people coming forward to dispute, so.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the plan. So we will meet next week after the work session. I should have some more information and we'll go through the balancing of the budget, hopefully, as much as we can, so.
But
Sounds
I
good.
think it's real important to note that we can give taxpayers the equivalent of a 1-2 punch because their taxes will go up somewhat based on valuation.
Right,
And their taxes will go up based on our increased levy. So we're squeezing them two ways.
But hence is the county needs to get us numbers.
Yeah.
The state needs to change the dates so that we can actually
Yeah.
get the real numbers so that you don't have that potential of the 1-2 punch. And vice versa can happen on a down year. Valuation can drop and we would drop and then.
Valuations seldom drop.
Well, there's a list there that showed that they
They did.
dropped about
But
5 or 6 times in 10 years.
Well,
so.
but they drop partially because of the homeowner's exemption and some stuff like
Yeah.
that.
and that's the
No,
same
I-
for this year. It's still at the 100,000. I think they looked at that
Well,
again.
when the state went up 8,000 one year and we didn't go up that much, but we get the application of 8,000.
Right.
But that's why I think it'd be appropriate for us to really push AIC to get something, or the state to do something, because
They should be able to complete by the 1st of July, give us the numbers within 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that would,
absolutely, no question.
and yeah, they're just
Yeah.
working within the dates that they have, so
Yeah.
we're kind of, I know it's not
It's
an
a
ideal
legend.
situation.
It's a legislative issue that the legislatures really need to look at and do something with, because it isn't in the best interest of taxpayers
No.
to have it both ways there. So.
Right. Okay, any additional questions? I don't have questions like.
Any others? No, doesn't look like it.
Okay, so I will build the revenues into the budget and then I will bring you numbers next week. And we'll go through and see what we have. I have no idea what it looks like. No idea.
Sounds,
So,
that sounds good. Any other questions for Ashley? Thank you, Ashley. We'll see you later tonight, I'm sure of that. So, thank you very much.
yep.
Thank you, council. With that, we are adjourned.
Auctions closed?
Auctions closed.
Yeah.